What's up, Bills Mafia? Tilt here, flying solo with you tonight to talk everything Bills, Dolphins, Bills winning the AFC East last night and headed into the AFC playoffs as the number 2 seed, hosting the Pittsburgh Steelers next Sunday at 1 p.m. We're going to talk about that, talk a little bit about the schedule, and let you get back to watching that national championship game. But first,
Welcome to the Air Raid Hour, a Cover One Network podcast. Here are your hosts, Judge Mathis and Tilt Money.
good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome into the Air Raid Hour Monday edition, Victory Monday edition, final week of the regular season. The Bills come up with a pretty exciting, I'll say, win against the Miami Dolphins last night, the final game of the regular season across the NFL. I'll be hosting solo tonight. Judge has some things that he has to take care of. We're going to be running through everything that happened in this Miami Buffalo game last night from Miami. We're going to talk a little bit about how the AFC playoff picture has shaken out after yesterday's action. And obviously we'll maybe go back in time a bit to kind of set the scene, what happened Saturday with the Ravens Steelers, and kind of build up to what happened last night. And then, of course, we'll take a really quick look ahead to the Bills' opponent this upcoming weekend in the Pittsburgh Steelers. So a lot to cover. We'll try to keep it a fairly tight, maybe like 45 minutes or so show tonight. Time this up to the best we can so that by the time the second half of this national championship game gets underway, we'll be wrapping up here on the Air Raid Hour so folks can go and watch the rest of that game after a slow start. Washington's kind of hanging in there now, and we'll see kind of what happens there. But obviously, the main focus for tonight's show will be the Bills and their, do we call it improbable run to the AFC East crown? I think in many ways it was improbable, not necessarily improbable as far as the odds at the start of the season, right? The Bills were obviously favored to win the division this year. Things didn't start out great in week one with that loss to the Jets, and it was very much an up and down season for this Bills team. Change at offensive coordinator, an in-season coordinator change or head coaching change, especially, which wasn't the case, but in-season coaching changes to major representation on the coaching staff it is not to be taken lightly, right? And so the Bills make that change after the Denver game, obviously, and we know kind of what happens from there. Joe Brady comes in. The Bills seem to find their footing, obviously, and they end up going 6-6 into their bye week, the late bye for the Bills, and they end up winning then 5 games in a row out of that bye to finish the season at 11-6 and ultimately steal away the division title from Miami. Miami had that loss to the Titans where the Titans inexplicably came back on them. A couple other things that went the Bills' way, obviously there. But at the end of the day, the Miami Dolphins still had their chance to win the division, and the Bills had their chance, thanks in large part to their Week 4 victory over the same Miami Dolphins. And without that early season win over this Dolphins team, the Bills would not have had a chance at that division title last night. So having that win against that division rival and the team that was winning your division going into that game last night obviously set the stage for the Bills to potentially steal the division away from Miami. And that's exactly what they did. So Yeah, Jared, that's on me. In fact, I could probably get that changed for you. That should have been that should have obviously been a 14. And we'll see what kind of magic I can pull off here midstream while we're working on this. While we're working on this, it was a long day here at the old Tilton household. Late night, obviously, last night. Work today, getting ready for the show, and so yeah, definitely a miss on my part. But you know what? We'll get it fixed. We'll get it fixed. It's not going to be a problem, and we'll go ahead and take care of that. So, um, Jessica says look very lonely tonight till you're at the okay, Jessica, you're right down the street from me at the old Cary Parkway YMCA. And Jared says I just don't want to give the Dolphins anything. That is totally fair, Jared. And I appreciate that because honestly, I would have gone the whole show. I would have gone the whole show with that graphic on there, and obviously it's wrong. So we'll fix it. And with the magic that I have here, we'll fix that in just about 5 seconds. So, look, what a scene last night! And let me just fix this graphic. There you go, and we're good. Just the old switcheroo, right? Okay, so got that fixed for you, and now we'll have it there the rest of the show. So Bills win last night, but what I want to do is I want to kind of go back a little bit to setting the scene for what this weekend really was. So obviously Judge and I did the pregame show, but really at the time of the pregame show, all we really knew was at that time that the Ravens had obviously lost to the Steelers, right? So going into Sunday's action, there was still the chance that the Tennessee Titans could beat the Jacksonville Jaguars and secure the Bills at a playoff spot, regardless of the outcome. The newer YMCA off 55. Oh, that's right. Okay, yeah, I know exactly where that is, Jessica. The Bills still had a chance to secure a playoff spot right before their game against the Dolphins. And I will say the Tennessee Titans, I mean, they played a really good game against the Jacksonville Jaguars. The Jags had a chance at the end. The Titans made a really nice fourth down stop at the goal line against the Jags. Titans able to move the ball out to about the 30-40 yard line. Tannehill took a bad sack, had to punt the ball away, but were able to hold off Jacksonville late in that game. And essentially it gave the Bills a playoff spot at that point in time. And that was a 1:00 game. So there's still 4 hours, obviously, between that game and the Bills game starting. But I will say, as much as we really wanted the 2 seed and we got that 2 seed, just knowing that you had the playoff berth secured, I think should have allowed the Bills to come out and play looser, right? Play a little bit freer. And I think what you see, and my biggest takeaway as we get to that for tonight, the biggest takeaway for me was I thought the Bills came out on offense and actually, turnover side really moved the ball well. And what I think is something that maybe is going to be a topic of discussion as we get to the offense here is that in recent weeks, the Bills have really had that run game going with James Cook. We saw it against Dallas. We even saw them have that good running game going against the likes of the Philadelphia Eagles before the bye week. James Cook really never got it going on the ground last night against Miami, and that was obviously a topic of conversation on the pregame, right? How are you going to get this run game going against Miami? Statistically, they were an average run defense coming in, but they had Christian Wilkins and Seiler in the middle there. We thought maybe the Bills would attack the run with their run game on the edges. They didn't really ever have a ton of success doing that in this game last night. We saw James Cook try to bounce to the outside a few times. And for the first time in really several weeks, and really, I would say for the first time this season, we saw James Cook took his fair share of negative run plays in this game that really kind of put the ball in Josh Allen's hands essentially the majority of this game. And you can see the stat line there, 30 for 38, 359 yards, the 2 TDs and two INTs. But ultimately, the biggest takeaway for me in this game was the play of Josh Allen in the face of adversity early on in this game, where the Bills were moving up and down the field between the 1 yard lines, right? Between the 20s, and just failing to come away with points. And if you look at this box score on the surface, you see that the Bills only punted the ball 1 time in this game. They were in scoring range on all 3 of their turnovers. Now, I know the 4th and 2 was, around the 40-yard line or so, but really, those 3 turnovers all in scoring range for the Bills, and really only the 1 punt. So for me, the biggest takeaway here was that the offense, to me, did find something. And although they did have the turnovers, they were able to move the ball pretty effectively. And I know the Miami Dolphins uh, have their own injuries, and there are a lot of guys missing on that unit. But to me, Josh Allen coming out in this game, throwing only 8 incompletions the entire game, just under 360 yards through the air. That is, to me, regardless of the INTs, because we know that that's what happens with Josh. He's going to throw those INTs that have your head scratching a little bit. But I think for him, this is a momentum, a good momentum game for him going into the playoffs. The INTs came early. They were on obviously the first 2 possessions the Bills had, and then after that, a clean game. Obviously, the fumble aside, which was kind of a free play anyway, but um, good momentum. I think for me, biggest takeaway for the offense heading into the playoffs on a night where they really didn't have their best running game either. So to me, that's something, as Seth says here, 6 incompletions to the fish exactly on 38 attempts. And RJ makes a comment here about the running game. I think the issue with letting Cook on the edge was that Davis was outside to block. Sherfield and Shakir missed a bunch of blocks on those outside zone runs, and they did. Eric Turner just put a really great video out about how Trent Sherfield affected the game in a positive way outside of his touchdown catch, but it was more so in the passing game and kind of clearing out space for routes. Drawing defenders into certain areas of the field to allow for others to make plays. So it was more about Shakir's role, Sherfield's role in the passing game as a block, as opposed to being a blocker in the run game. So, and yes, John, he did miss the long play to Diggs early on. That's something that the Bills have had a struggled to connect on this year, is the large air yards type throws that we've seen. This be a little bit of a roller coaster type of play for the Bills over the years. Early on in Josh's career, he struggled to hit those plays. Kind of went through a phase there where we were able to actually hit many of those. Notably in the John Brown era, and Stephon Diggs has had a few as well. But this year, that for whatever reason, the big air yards throws just haven't been hitting. And there have been chances, right? And Eric's also put out some good film on that as well. So, I think if the Bills at some point in this postseason, the Bills are going to need to hit one of those types of plays, right? They're going to need to hit one of those big, deep, game-changing type of bombs, to change a game or to put a game away. And RJ further comes in and says 2 picks should have been on Davis. Davis trips on one. And again, I'm not on the same page for the other. And then speaking of Gabe Davis, as we kind of transition into talking about the offense now, banged up, multiple reports out there saying that it's a possible PCL injury. Depending on the severity, like he may not miss a lot of time. He may miss time. Obviously hasn't been ruled out yet. Still too early to really know exactly what his status is going to be, obviously, for this upcoming game. But let's talk a little bit about the offense, and we'll start with Josh Allen. Obviously, you can see the stat line there, 30 for 38, 359, and 2 TDs. Chipped in with the 15 rushes for 67 yards as well. And really, Josh Allen was the Bills' running game in this one. There were a few decent James Cook runs. Leonard Fournette was involved minimally. Ty Johnson got a nice run early in the game, but then was obviously kept out in the second half after suffering that concussion on the helmet hit that was not called a penalty. So really Josh Allen was the running game for the Bills last night, and what an effort by him, right? On a variety of types of runs, right? You see the bobsled or whatever Collinsworth is calling it on the short yardage, and kind of him getting in on those. Obviously, at the end of the game, the Bills got stopped, but for the most part, he was delivering on that. The 3rd and 13 play where he runs and picks up the first down. Other running plays early in the game, shaking out to the left, um, and guys draped on him and able to get away and picking up first downs. This to me is the stylistically, the game that Josh Allen played last night is the type of game that if he puts that type of game together, obviously sans the turnovers, then the Bills are going to have a really good chance to win any game they play in these playoffs. So a really good bounce back from him after the 2 early turnovers. I mean, obviously the Bills were moving the ball up and down the field. And we'll just talk a little bit quickly about the disparity in the yardage, right? Bills 473 yards on offense, 345 through the air. They were 9 for 15 on third downs. They were only 1 for 3 on fourth downs, but obviously one was the long interception Josh threw when he was trying to hit Gabe, and the other was near the end of the game when Josh got stopped on that short yardage. Otherwise, they did convert on the other fourth down they had. So, but 9 for 15 on third downs, 473 yards compared to the Dolphins 275, and obviously the 8.4 yards per pass was a very healthy kind of a good number there. This is a game I think that, like I said, Josh Allen can build on and that take that momentum into the game against Pittsburgh. Ends up leading the league when all is said and done in total touchdowns, ends up leading the league when it all is said and done in total yards, and of course doesn't make the Pro Bowl. So, chip on the shoulder, find them where you can get them, right? And so Josh Allen, one of his quintessential type of games, right, that we've kind of seen from him over the years. The receivers, Diggs getting back involved, right? And that was something that we talked about in the pregame. I was really kind of pumping Diggs up in the pregame for a monster type of game. And now, while it wasn't a monster type of game, he still contributed nicely. Obviously, the deep ball early that kind of got the Bills back in the game, and then the Sherfield play came a few plays later. But obviously, Diggs leading the team in targets here with 8, tied for the team lead with Kincaid, I should say. 87 yards on the 7 catches for him. Khalil Shakir topping 100 yards. Only Bills player to go over 100 yards in this game. 6 catches for 105. Had the 2 big plays, the early play, the bubble screen where he bolted up the sideline, and then the deep kind of honeypot throw that Josh Allen made sort of towards the end of the game that set up the Dawson Knox touchdown. So Khalil Shakir really coming into his own. He's going to be really important come the playoffs now, with Gabe Davis potentially hurt and maybe not available, right? I mean, as good as maybe Trent Sherfield was at clearing out space and kind of creating things for others, he's not the biggest receiving threat. Although he did have a nice catch in this game on a laser from Josh Allen over the middle of the field. Khalil Shakir has been the guy that stepped up, right, in place and in partnership with Gabe Davis. And now we'll see if Gabe Davis is going to miss any time, and the pressure will be on Khalil Shakir to deliver, and then and so it will be important for him to kind of maintain that as well. Obviously, this is a huge game for him to go into the playoffs, from 100 plus yards and taking that momentum. I thought Trent Sherfield played a good game. Obviously, struggled maybe a little bit blocking in the run game, but obviously made that really nice adjustment and catch to get that touchdown off the deflected ball, and then made a couple other nice clear out type of plays. And I would encourage you you all, if you haven't got a chance. Eric put out it's about a 3-minute clip of different Trent Sherfield plays that how he affected and helped the Bills kind of set up some big plays. So uh, and Pop says Sherfield loves weird plays in that end zone. Yeah. It's a very weird. I mean, I don't like Collinsworth, but he was right after that play when he said it was going to be a wild game. And sure enough, it was. Um, and so I'll save the Deonte Harty comment for when we get to special teams. But offensively, the receivers did their thing in this game, and of course the tight ends, right? Dawson Knox and Dalton Kincaid in this game. Kincaid tied for the team lead with 7 catches, 84 yards, almost an identical stat line to Stephon Diggs. And then Dawson Knox with only the 2 catches, but did get the touchdown. And let's be realistic here, right? That touchdown that Dawson Knox caught, Josh Allen threw a really nice ball to him, but I mean, he still had to get upfield for about three or so yards and make a guy miss or run through a guy to get into the end zone. So even in the limited action, let's say Dawson Knox had in uh in this game, he made an impact, right? And that wasn't a guaranteed touchdown by any means. There was some work to do after that catch, and he got it done. So Dalton Kincaid sets the Bills tight end record for receptions in a season as a rookie. The sky is the limit for this guy. He looks so smooth catching the ball and getting upfield. There's really no wasted motion from Dalton Kincaid. So I am really encouraged by what we've seen from him out of his rookie season. And the Bills really look like they found a gem in Dalton Kincaid. And so while there were some question marks around, like, drafting a tight end over receiver, I think now, as we've seen the season play out, getting Dalton Kincaid has been a godsend for this team. And what the Bills do at receiver this upcoming offseason, we'll have that discussion. But we will see. As far as the offensive line, a pretty decent job, I thought, but not their best game run blocking, and in protection there were some issues. Obviously the Dolphins were sending a lot of pressure, playing a lot of cover zero, and the Bills early were struggling a bit, and a lot of that was Josh Allen kind of struggling to know where to go with the football, but made the adjustments, right? And the Bills started taking advantage of that later on in the game. And so I thought the line did a pretty good job overall. Dawkins came out for a bit, had a cut on his hand, and Jared's comment in the comment section, I don't know how his hand got cut. I have no idea how that happened, but he ended up only missing 8 snaps. So came back in the game. Ryan Vandermark came in for him for 8 snaps, and Dawkins ended up missing 8 snaps. So overall, it doesn't look like it's going to be an issue going forward. Hopefully it's, he might be limited in practice or something like that, but I would doubt it. So we'll see. And as Pop says, Ryan Vandermark off the bench for a TD drive. So look, overall, the offense, big day for them, right? 473 yards, 9 for 15, as I said, on third downs. Just a really solid day. The turnovers obviously put a little bit of a blemish on that. So, Steve, no injury updates yet. Dodson's with the shoulder, Gabe with the knee. There's been a little bit of news on Gabe Davis, speculation on the knee injury from some people, some doctors on social media, PCL potential, but no official word from the Bills yet. And as Nikki says here, Douglas said he probably could have gone back in. There was the locker room interview with him where basically Dane Jackson, and I'm sorry, I don't remember which reporter it was that asked the question, but essentially the reporter asked him, and he said Dane came up to him and said, "Hi, I've got you. Like, don't worry about it." But it sounded like Rasul Douglas, in a extreme scenario, could have come back in the game. So again, I'm expecting that either he'll be not practicing or limited in practice early in the week, but we will hope that he is up and ready for this game against the Steelers, because although the Steelers maybe don't look like a huge threat, they still have some pretty nice weapons on the outside there with George Pickens and Deontay Johnson. So will be nice to have Rasul Douglas back. So let's hope he is back. And that'll be a nice segue for us to now go transition to talk about the defensive side of the ball for the Bills. Rasul Douglas, obviously, that's one of the major sort of storylines coming out of this game with the injury. Tyrell Dodson as well injured. Balon Spector came in for Tyrell Dodson in this game, made a nice impact early, made a nice tackle on a run. Dane Jackson came in and played admirably. It was a little touch and go in the beginning there. Obviously had the holding and the gave up the big catch down the sideline, but Dane Jackson really came in and settled in after that and played a nice game. Ultimately, you want Rasul Douglas back, right, for the playoffs, and you want Tyrell Dodson back. And I can't believe we're saying that, but those guys acquitted themselves pretty well when they came in. And, Dane Jackson ended up playing 52% of the snaps in this game. Tyrell Dodson only ended up playing 20 snaps in this game. Spector played 19. So they used a lot of Taylor Rapp in this game as well. He played 13 snaps. So the Bills mixing and matching a bit once Dodson got hurt, but it was primarily Balon Spector that came in. And as RJ says here, if it is a PCL strain for Davis, it's usually 2 to 3 injury. If it's grade 1 or 2, that said, it's the playoffs. He may play through it. Again, that was just some speculation that we saw online. There's been no official update yet from the Bills on that. Pops asked, how do we think Spector played? I thought he played well, right? 19 snaps, made a couple nice plays against the run. And ultimately, we look at the Bills' defense and kind of how they fared in this game. Early on, they were struggling a bit with that misdirection sort of counter pitch that Miami was running to Devon Achane, and they were getting burned on it. And obviously, Achane had the touchdown on it as well. But man, what an adjustment the Bills make in the second half. These are the drive. Like each team had 9 drives, 4 each in the first half, 5 each in the second. The drives in the second half for the Dolphins: 3 plays, 9 yards, punt. 4 plays, 11 yards, punt. 3 plays, 1 yard, punt. 3 plays, 3 yards, punt. 4 plays, 23 yards, interception. I mean, that is simply incredible when you start to look at the yardage that this team allowed to the number 1 offense in the NFL coming into this game. Now, I will say the Dolphins were clearly missing Jalen Waddle in this game to take some of the attention off of Tyreek Hill, but it doesn't matter. They still had Devon Achane. They still had Tyreek Hill, and the Bills allow a 9-yard drive, an 11-yard drive, a 3-yard drive, a 23-yard drive, and a 1-yard drive in the 23-yard drive being the last one, and a 1-yard drive in that second half. Simply incredible job by that defense. And by the way, doing that in the second half after those injuries took place, right? That was without Rasul Douglas. That was without Tyrell Dodson. It was just an incredible effort. And I know maybe some of the shine comes off because maybe the Dolphins didn't have Mostert. They didn't have Waddle, but it doesn't matter. They still have Tyreek Hill. They still have Tua, the league leader in passing yards. They still have Devon Achane. And the Bills got it done on defense. And, you look at the totals here, 275 yards allowed to the Dolphins total. They were only 4 for 10 on third down in this game. Early on, the Dolphins were running. They were averaging over 6 to 7 yards a carry. They ended up only averaging 5.4. And the Bills outpossessed the Dolphins in this game as well, 38 plus minutes to 21, just under 22. So the Bills defense got it done. And it's just one of those games where you felt like just get the ball back to the offense and eventually they were going to score. And that felt a little different than maybe games in the past where the defense was giving the offense chance after chance, right? Like the Denver game comes to mind, or the Giants game, or the Tampa Bay game. This was a game where you felt like if the Bills got the ball back in the hands of Josh Allen, the offense, that they were going to move the ball and score, outside of obviously having turnovers. So, and that's exactly what happened. The Bills end up scoring. The Bills end up scoring the 2 touchdowns in the second half, shutting out the Dolphins in the second half in this one. So really just an incredible effort. And I just have to, tip my hat to the whole defense, to Sean McDermott, the adjustments they made, the play of the guys that came in and filled in, Spector, Dane Jackson, Taylor Rapp, also with a couple big plays at the end. The safeties, I think, Poyer and Hyde, it's been an up and down season for them. Obviously, they're not the same duo they used to be together, but big plays from them. Poyer, big tackle for loss, and a big tackle in the open field, guy coming out of the backfield. Dane Jackson making a big tackle on Braxton Berrios to keep him short of the first down, and the Dolphins really in a tough situation. It was like inside their own 30, around their 25, and so Mike McDaniel decides to punt there. Could have been a difference. That's a ballsy call to go for it there that deep in your own territory, but I probably would have still gone for it if I was Mike McDaniel. And then obviously Micah Hyde punching the ball out of Tyreek Hill's hands there near the second to last drive, which forced obviously the Dolphins to have to punt as well. So I like the comment here from Brian. McDermott has been the difference with the defense. It's very clear that Frazier, albeit wasn't terrible, he was no Sean McDermott calling and scheming the defense. And I have to agree with Brian here. It's a perfect comment. Even with the same personnel and the same, I'll call it scheme, right? From an alignment perspective, it's different adjustments, different level of aggression. I feel like guys are, it's less about like, it's less about having to be perfect, I would say, on every play. Whereas I felt like with Leslie Frazier's defense, it was like truly the 111th, and you really had to rely on fundamentals and timing and coming up and being in the right spot. Now, that's still obviously important with McDermott's defense, but it does seem like there's a little bit more aggressiveness, a lot more aggressiveness, I would say. And it's in the personnel we have in different positions is a little bit different, right, this year than it was in prior years. Terrell Bernard manning the middle linebacker spot is clearly a archetype shift, right, from what the Bills had with Tremaine Edmonds. And so, again, if you were looking to plug in, replace Tremaine Edmonds with the same type of player, like that's not what Sean McDermott did. And Terrell Bernard, to his credit, he's having an all-pro caliber season. Didn't make the Pro Bowl either. Probably won't make the all-pro team, but probably should. He probably should. And he's extremely instinctual. He's really, really good against the run as well, even for a guy his size. And he's obviously really good in coverage. And Carl comes in. Thank you, Carl. I know you've been hitting us with the super chats a lot lately. So I really want to just say thanks to you, and we appreciate it. Is this the most impressive game of McDermott's coaching career? Did you expect to ever expect him to go for a 4th and 1 from his own 35? Kudos to the head coach. I did expect it last night, and I know that's going to sound like, oh, no, you didn't, till like I did. Last night I did, right? Because the way that game was going, the Bills offense was moving against that opponent. You don't want to give them any more chances than you need to. And I know it's a risky, but like you're going for the division, you're going for the 2 seed. Like that's the type of decision that, yes, it can lose you games, but it's also the difference between winning that type of game. So look, kudos to McDermott. Yeah, I do think it was one of his better coached games. I think the one thing I questioned was the use of the timeout near the end of the first half that we would have had in our back pocket after that Ty Johnson play. But again, hindsight's 2020. He had a really good game. The defense was incredible and also won a challenge, by the way, in this game, which McDermott's track record on challenges is one of the worst in the NFL over the last 7-8 years. However many odd years he's been coaching the Bills since 27, 6 years. So the challenge was a big one, right? Because that made it like 3rd and 13, I think, or 2nd and 15. Like I can't remember the down and distance exactly, but the play was essentially going to be 1 yard short of a first down, but instead was an incomplete pass. So that was clearly a big decision as well, and risky, right? Because these calls with the NFL officiating the way it's gone this year, like you almost don't know, even if it's obvious, what they're going to do. It could be obvious. They could call it one way. You could see the same type of play happen in 2 different games, and it called one way in one and another. We saw this with the AJ Brown catch against the Bills, and then you see Keenan Allen the same week. They call it a fumble. It's like you don't ever know how it's going to go with these calls. And so a challenge in that situation, knowing you're potentially going to lose a timeout, which by the way, in the second half is big against the team at that time, like that was a good call. That was a good call. And so, I mean, Seth here says the officials are ruining the game. I will say this about the officials. Specifically in that game last night, I thought there were 2 missed calls. I thought there was a missed call on Dawson Knox on the first drive of the game where he got mugged and they should have called pass interference. And I thought they should have called helmet to helmet hit on Baker against Ty Johnson. Both of those calls obviously would have been huge because the Bills would have had a first down and goal at like the 2-yard line, and they would have had an untimed down at like the 1-yard line. I thought generally otherwise it was an okay, decently officiated game, but we do have Carl Cheffers for this playoff game coming up against the Steelers. So hold your breath there. And yes, there was a lot of holding. I guess that was happening quite a bit too. But like, this is the bar we have now for officiating. Like it was, it was like even those 2. I mean, I think with those 2, it wasn't the worst. It wasn't the worst. Allen's hand out of bounds. Where they kept the clock running, although that was in the Bills' favor. So, I'll take that one. So, but overall, good job for the defense. Good momentum again going into this game next week against the Steelers. Mason Rudolph and crew. Look, different style of team. They're not necessarily gonna have the same type of speed that the Miami Dolphins have, but they do still have some big play threats on that team. Jalen Warren, George Pickens, Deontay Johnson, Najee Harris have been playing better lately. So the defense will need to be ready. Had to put special teams on the banner tonight. Obviously, Deonte Harty's punt return for the touchdown was the turning point. Those show they do, NFL Turning Point. They used to do. I don't know if they even still do it, but they used to do that, like NFL Turning Point. And the guys would be mic'd up, and they'd have like the NFL Films kind of like do a little piece on in-game momentum changing type things. Like this would be the perfect candidate for that show. That to me was the play of the game. It got the Bills back in the game. It tied the game. It gave the Bills all the momentum. They come back out. They get the ball right back after that. Just totally deflated Miami. You love to see that look on Mike McDaniel's face after that happens. No flags on the play, which is incredible for any kind of return these days in the NFL, for there to be no flags. It was just unbelievable. And then hearing the video, right, play back on social media today and hearing the cheering, coming from Bills fans in that stadium on that return. Just all the things felt good. I said on social media today that play reminded me of the Taron Johnson pick six against the Ravens in the playoffs from a couple years ago. It was just that game-changing type of play. Now, that Taron Johnson play was almost kind of like a game-sealing type of play, and it was in the playoffs, but this play had a similar feeling to me. Long, right? Going the other way. Taron Johnson's was 100 plus. This was 96. So, man, in the day and age today in the NFL where the return game has become less and less important and meaningful to the outcomes of these games from a special teams standpoint, really the punting and field goal game is front and center for special teams these days. It's nice to see every once in a while a kick return or a punt return that changes the game and see guys still be able to make an impact. And then, yeah, Pop Spoon for blocking the punter, then trying to keep up was pretty awesome. So, look, Bills special teams, it was definitely a bounce back effort from them. Coverage units were fine in this game. Sam Martin only had to punt the ball once, as I mentioned at the top of the show. There was no return on that one because the Bills were in scoring range on all the other times that they ended up not having, not and giving the ball away. So, yeah, the special teams were finally a nice breath of fresh air for the Bills, and obviously game ball. Josh gives the ball to Harty there. Huge play. You just never know when those types of plays are going to be coming. And you're totally right here, Charles. Harty, Sherfield, Rapp, all three made massive plays. And it was nice to see those contributions from these off-season signings. And yeah, in a game like that where guys were kind of dropping like flies, right? You had Gabe Davis go out, you had Dodson go out, you had Douglas go out, right? It was nice to see that type of contribution. And yes, I agree, RJ. I'm out on Matt Smiley. I said in our Cover One group chat last night, like jokingly, like Matt Smiley trying to save his job, but I'm not going to be fooled. I think the Bills need to make a change there. I mean, they obviously made a change in season at the offensive coordinator position. They made a change at the beginning of the season with McDermott calling the plays. I do think they need to get a new special teams coordinator. And Nikki says, Bill says Dawkins went out. Yes, he only missed 8 plays, thankfully. So he still played a majority. And Nikki says, I'm 100% out on him. Talking about Matthew Smiley. So we're going to close the show out tonight. And thank you for sticking with me tonight. These solo shows, I've mentioned it before, they're always tough. Judge is usually the guy driving these shows, and he does such a good job pacing things out and really feeding back and forth with me on this. So, doing these shows, it's good practice, but it's also helpful when the comment section is really, the comment section is really doing a great job tonight. And I appreciate you all. I mean, it was a long day yesterday. I don't know if I can speak for all of you on that, but for me, it was a long day. Starting with Saturday, right? And kind of grinding through, hoping that the Ravens were going to win that game, then getting to Sunday, waiting around till 1:00 for that Titans-Jags game. Nice that the Titans won, but then again, waiting another 4 hours for that Bills game to start. It was a long day. And then I end up staying up watching all the extra coverage on Peacock and everything on that. Because like, hey, if I'm paying for Peacock to watch that Bills Chargers game, I'm gonna watch the extra coverage. So Poyer did a nice job, by the way, for those who caught the bonus coverage on Peacock. Poyer did a nice job on set there talking to the crew. So let's take a few minutes here to just look ahead quickly at the AFC playoff picture. The playoff, wild card weekend is set. We've got the Bills obviously playing the Steelers in the 1 p.m. window on Sunday, which is nice that the Bills don't have to turn around in play on Saturday, right? After having the late Sunday game, last game of the regular season. So it is nice that the Bills don't have to turn around and come back and play on Saturday. So we've got the Saturday games. First game of the weekend, we've got the Browns at the Texans at 4:30 on Saturday, and then you've got the Dolphins at the Chiefs at 8 o'clock on Saturday. So Saturday, big day for the AFC playoff picture, right? And I said on Twitter yesterday, it's really nice that one of Miami or Kansas City is going to be uh, eliminated on Saturday. Someone replied to me and said, "What if they tie?" I think they might have been trolling me, like knowing you can't have a tie in the playoffs. But in any case, I'm going to be excited to watch that Cleveland Texans game. CJ Stroud to me is one of my favorite players right now in the league, non-Bills players in the league. And how do you not root for a guy like Joe Flacco? I mean, he's a likable guy to me. Um, the Browns have kind of been that sort of brotherly team with the Bills. But that's going to be a fun game. Like that Cleveland defense is legit. Stroud and Co. at home. Um, the last time the Texans were in a home playoff game was funny enough when they played the Bills back in 2019 and made that comeback against the Bills. That was the last time the Texans had a home playoff game. So that'll be a fun one. And then you got the Chiefs Dolphins Saturday night. That's going to be fun. Nice to have that on a Saturday night. Relax as Bills fans, watch that game, see how it plays out. I see Jeff coming in saying, I want the Chiefs in Buffalo. And if the Bills do win, and if the Chiefs do win, that will be the case because the Chiefs will be the highest seed remaining with the Bills, and the Ravens will get the winner of Houston and Cleveland if the Bills win and if the Chiefs win. So, yeah, I think that Bills fans have been waiting for a long time to get the Chiefs in Buffalo. It's been 5 games in a row in Arrowhead, including playoffs. The Bills have played the Chiefs. Potentially now, the Bills with a decent chance to play the Chiefs at home in this year's playoffs, and then also getting to play the Chiefs. The schedule was opponents were not the schedule, but the opponents were finalized for next year's schedule earlier today, and the Bills will play the Chiefs at home next year in the regular season. Then we move into the Sunday games. You've got a great day of games on Sunday, starting with the Bills playing the Steelers in that 1 o'clock slot. First game of the day. Love that time slot for the Bills. I think they love that time slot for themselves. Great to have the first game of the day on Sunday. Perfect time slot. Then you got the Packers at Cowboys at 4:30. And then finally, you've got Matt Stafford coming back to Detroit at 8 o'clock. The last game on Sunday night. The Rams going to Detroit to play the Lions. Honestly, outside of the Bills game, that might be the one I'm looking forward to the most. The Lions Rams, maybe sneaky best game of the slate, but I am really looking forward to that. And then obviously the Super Wild Card weekend wraps up with the Philly going to Tampa on Monday. Oof, that game doesn't excite me too much. I kind of hope Baker Mayfield and Tampa Bay beat Philadelphia. I'm not a big Nick Sirianni guy. Kind of rubs me the wrong way. I don't love the Eagles. Wouldn't mind seeing Tampa Bay at home pull the upset against the Philadelphia Eagles. For my wife and for my brother, I'll be rooting for the Packers against the Cowboys as well. Although my Super Bowl prediction preseason was Bills versus Cowboys. So who knows? Maybe that could still happen. And Charles asks, is Watt out? It certainly looks like he's going to be out. It sounds like, based on what they're reporting, that at a minimum, it's going to be a 1 to 2 week absence for him. That's what it sounds like right now. So the Bills, fortunate that they will not have to yes, as Pete says, Watt is unofficially out, but he will be out for this game based on everything we're seeing. So unless something crazy happens, the Bills will not have to deal with TJ Watt in this game. Look, interesting matchup, right? The Bills and the Steelers. The Steelers have some good players on offense, right? We mentioned Deontay Johnson, George Pickens as a big play threat. He's kind of like their version of Gabe Davis, I would say. They've got Pat Freiermuth back now from injury. Missed a chunk in the middle of the season. He was on IR, but he's back now. And they've got that duo of running backs with Najee and Jaylen Warren. I really like Jaylen Warren. I think him and Najee are really good complements to each other. Najee's been playing better lately, and that line is blocking much better. For the Steelers, it's really going to probably come down to Mason Rudolph, right? And can he deliver the ball where he needs to in a game that there's going to be a lot of pressure on him? The Bills need to make life miserable for Mason Rudolph. The Bills can't take the Steelers lightly. They still have a pretty good defense, even without TJ Watt, Alex Highsmith, and others. But they're injured. They have some injuries as well. Micah Fitzpatrick injured. TJ Watt's going to be out. So they're going to be undermanned a bit as well. But again, these are two teams both made offensive coordinator changes mid-season. The Steelers getting rid of Matt Canada, the Bills getting rid of Ken Dorsey, Mike Tomlin and Sean McDermott. Obviously, the history between the two of them with William and Mary, and like very familiar with each other. So as far as intrigue is concerned, for a 2-7 game, there is quite a bit of intrigue, right? You've got the sort of Pittsburgh, Buffalo, geography as well there. And so like it is definitely going to be a game that in my mind is going to be harder than maybe some people think to win. I really like Mike Tomlin. I think he's one of the best coaches in the league. Just somehow finds a way every year to keep his team, just keep his team relevant. But obviously when all is said and done, it is a good draw for the Bills, right? Like you would much rather have this home game against the Steelers than have to go back to Miami again next week, where they would potentially be getting guys like Mostert and Waddle back. So a good draw for the Bills. Steve and I will be on for the pregame show Sunday morning, our normal morning pregame slot at 9 a.m., getting you ready for that Bills-Steelers game. We will also talk a little bit, recap the action from Saturday's 2 AFC playoff games, which will be nice to talk about that a little bit. So join us on Sunday morning where we'll be talking all that, getting you ready for the Bills and Steelers. So to not go too far into it, because we'll have our official pregame show on Sunday, I want to take this opportunity to thank you all tonight in the comment section for joining me and really joining us all year on the Air Raid Hour. Eric and Greg and Aaron have really let us kind of do our thing here on the Air Raid Hour. They support us. Those guys have been really good to us since we came over to Cover One, and I want to give them a thanks as well as we kind of wrap on the regular season here. Bonus coverage, obviously, that we get to do these shows going into the postseason. I don't take it for granted. Getting to do these shows for you guys is really special, and I can't thank you all enough. So thanks again. We'll see you Sunday. Great win for the Bills. And until next time, go Bills.
Thank you for watching tonight's episode of the Air Raid Hour. Make sure to hit that like button on the way out. If you are catching the show on demand, leave a reply in the comments section and we will respond over the course of the week. You can always listen to every episode next day on all major podcasting platforms, including Apple Podcasts and Spotify, by searching Air Raid Buffalo. Thank you for your continued support, and as always, go Bills!